Hey guys, what's going on? It's Kodiak here, back for another video. And you know what? We have done a couple roundtable style videos now, and we thought there's so many out there. There's so many people doing roundtables and discussions about the game. So let's have a little bit of fun with it. So we're starting a new series today called Let's Drink and Talk About Legion. And today we are talking about the Legion launch. I have four of my friends from Exiled Power with me. We have got Nate, we've got Dylan, we've got Alýce, and we've got Steve. So, we are going to be talking about Legion launch and everything about Legion launch. But first, guys, what are we drinking tonight? What are we drinking?
Well, I guess I'll start off. I'm starting with a little homegrown brewery, back where I'm from, a little Indiana homegrown beer.
I got Moscato.
Nate, go for it. Just say it.
I'm drinking some Lagavulin because I'm a man.
Kelsø, round it off.
I got some Jameson ginger ale.
Nice. Classic choices from everybody. So, guys, we got a little bit of everything here tonight. We've got 2 melee DPS, we've got 2 range DPS, and we've got a healer. So no tanks present tonight, but that's okay because what we're talking about is basically our thoughts on certain topics from Legion from the moment we logged in, the night of launch to now, getting ready for raiding and getting ready for the Emerald Nightmare. So the first question, guys, so basic and generic, but I think everybody wants to know, what do you guys think of the expansion so far? It was a big expansion, a big launch. What do you guys think?
Haven't slept yet.
Well, that's pathetic.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
Going on 2 weeks, we haven't slept.
Just kidding.
Legion is tearing our family apart.
2 weeks
been
of
good.
sleep is
It's been good.
pretty intense.
Yeah, no, I mean, from my perspective, I was up all night pretty much from launch until I hit almost 24 hours straight with Nate, and it was a lot of fun. But now, sort of 2 weeks into it, it's becoming so much more of a grind than anything else. And obviously, want to be prepared for when raids drop and everything. So it's becoming a lot of work at this point. But it's still pretty fun, I guess, maybe.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's been a blast so far. I mean, the leveling process with our guildies, it was a lot of fun. A lot of us stayed up all night. I don't know. I think that they did a really good job gating certain things so that you don't get too bored with it as quickly as you did maybe in Warlords of Draenor, where you capped and there just wasn't much to do until they released Highmaul. They did a really good job kind of letting you have a lot of gameplay, a lot of things to do before the launch of, I guess, Mythics next week. So, or Mythic Plus next week, the Mythic Plus dungeon. So I think we're excited. I think it's going so far. And, it's good so far. So.
It's going. It's going.
It
Yeah.
is going.
Nate, Alýce, what do you guys got?
It's a lot of content.
There's a lot of content.
Like they were saying, it's very grindy if you're trying to get it all done right off the bat. I don't think it was designed to specifically be done as fast as possible. But if you're trying to get through it, of course you're gonna do it faster.
It was overwhelming to begin with, to be totally honest.
It is, yeah.
I mean,
It really was.
So much.
No,
research.
not was. It still is.
It still
It's
is.
incredibly overwhelming right now.
It's addicting too. You always want that 850 piece, that 850, Warforged, Titanforged piece, and I know some people are playing, 18 hours a day. It seems like, but it's part of it.
It's a lot of time.
Yeah.
Nate, what do you think?
For me, I mean, I kind of put myself at a disadvantage. I got to go on a little delayed honeymoon with my wife, so I'm actually just trying to get back into it. This whole past week, I've missed out on a lot of the stuff, a lot of resets. I haven't been able to do my Mythics yet, so I'm probably going to be doing a lot of crunch time this weekend to try and knock those out to get those last few pieces to catch up with the rest of the guild. But I'm not too far off. I got to take off the first week of Legion, so it was really nice being able to level with the other guildies. It was just a lot of fun. Just experiencing the whole leveling process and then actually getting to 110 and having so much to do. I mean, Suramar, there's tons of quests. You got dungeons and heroics, and we just delved into all of it, and it was really a lot of fun. So I'm happy to be back, and I'm happy to jump back into it with everyone else.
Just so you guys know, Nate is half robot, so if you're worried about his mic quality, it is because he is actually half made of metal. So don't worry, he's there. It's funny. You're one of a couple people who are coming back after a small break. right at the beginning. And Exiled Power is in a really interesting spot because we were really building all through High Mall, all through BRF, and definitely through HFC. We didn't really get solidified, and I think we talked about this in our last video, until about Mythic Socrathar, Mythic Iskar, that area. So now we're coming into an expansion pack. We're having a little bit of change and a little bit of, you know, bending and flexibility here and there. But, you know, how does it feel to be a competitive guild and miss a day or two? Nate, I think you missed a couple days. Kelsø, I think you missed a day or two. You went on vacation. What does it feel like coming back after missing a couple days?
Well, I mean, I only missed a fraction of the days that Nate ended up missing. For me, it was just the long weekend for Labor Day. But it sucks. I mean, like, I came back and I was like, holy shit. Like, there's so much shit that I missed as far as world quests and you know, dungeons and things like that. Like, I felt everybody was just grinding throughout the weekend, and, you know, on Discord, everybody's like talking and whatever, and I'm like, I have no idea what's going on because, like, I have zero access to a computer right now, and you know, and listen, I wouldn't have traded it for the world. Like, I enjoyed the time that I spent you know, on vacation and doing what I was doing, but at the same time, it was like, you always think about, like, everything that you're missing out on, you know, away from that, like in your virtual reality family, which, I mean, sadly is kind of how everybody here is. Like, we've all been together for a while, and we can consider ourselves sort of in a familial way, but it's all virtual reality, and it kind of sucks, but you know, that's just how it is. And you know, it was tough getting back and you know, having to make sure that I grind out all my Suramar quests and my Withered training. And by the way, Withered training sucks. Just a disclaimer. But you know, it's one of those things where you come back and it almost feels like it's a job to make sure you catch up to where you're supposed to be versus, oh, let me do this for fun, and then, like, that just be a byproduct of the game. It felt very much like, you know, work when I came back, and that's not how I enjoy playing my video games. Like, I just enjoy them for fun.
It's so funny because we're definitely at a point, like this weird point where all of the guilds on Arthas are at the same place, and we are very comfortable, and we recognize that Exiled Power can be competitive to a point, but we're competitive in our own little niche space of being a being the best 2-day, I should say, progressive rating guild on Arthas. There's no chance that we can compete with a guild that's 4 or 5 days, but at this point when we're all in the same playing field, it feels like we can all get to that same point together to give us that edge, to see how competitive we can be when we hit Emerald Nightmare. And at the end of the day, I feel like it's going to be a reality check when, you know, these guilds are rating 3-4 days and we just can't keep up. We'll do our best, obviously, but it's not going to happen. It's just the reality of the whole situation.
Yeah, right now we're fortunate to be gated for a lot of things, and, you know, whether it be item level. Right now everybody's gated to a maximum of 850 item level. So, you know, we can feel like we're in it with everybody else, right. But like you said, the reality is, like, you know, once the floodgates open, you know, we're gonna fall behind, and it's not because we're incompetent raiders or we're incompetent players, but whatever that was. But you know, we're just gonna fall behind because
I think you hit your timer.
We're you know, we're just not playing as much as other people, and that's totally fine. Like, that, you know, there's a reason why we excel in the niche that we are right now, and I'm fine with that. But you're absolutely right. Like, there's going to be a point in time, a week and a half from now, where, like, the floodgates open, and it's just like everybody that is progressing is going to go ham, and, you know, taking days off from work and you know, raiding 15 hours a day trying to get through Emerald Nightmare and you know, progress. But we're sort of going to be stuck in our 6 hours a week, which I'm fine with.
It's a challenge. But it is definitely a fun challenge.
Going back to HFC, I remember I think it was like the Tuesday. So we raid Tuesdays and Thursdays. I think the Tuesday that we raided, you know, we were like number 2 on the server, and we were super hyped because, you know, we're second in the server. We feel like we're good. You know, we are a bunch of great players. We just don't play as much as, you know, people that play, you know, 4 or 5 days a week or that raid that much. But you know, we started off the HFC, you know, super strong. You know, I think we got what, 3 or 4 bosses down or something, and yeah, we made like a big push. But obviously, we can only, you know, progress so much in 6 hours a week that the guilds that were rating 12 to 15 hours a week obviously just took us over like that. I mean, it was like in 2 days, you know.
Yep.
So
all right, so enough about Exiled Power. Let's jump into the launch. Let's talk about Legion really quick, and by really quick I mean for the next hour or so. So what did Blizzard get right? They obviously got a ton right. There's a ton of things that I still think they need to work on, but they got a lot right with this expansion. And right out of the gate, what are some of the things? Be specific, be general, whatever you guys want to talk about. But what did they get right?
I think they got the timing for the world quest and the emissaries right. Because, you know, I'm working 40 hours a week. I have a kid. I can't be on every night to do dailies. But I don't have to worry about it as much because, you know, I can log on one day and do 2 sets of emissary quests, and then I don't have to log on another day, and I have time to still be able to get those done and get the rep that I need from that.
And emissaries, for you guys who don't know, and you haven't unlocked your world quest yet, emissary quests you can see in the bottom part of your map at 110. They're part of the world quest cycle, and basically every day a new one gets populated. There's a few slots there, so you can kind of rack them up, so you don't have to log on every day. That's what Alýce is talking about. But by doing a series of quests for a specific faction, such as the Nightfallen or the Wardens, you gain perks. You get a chest and some rep, so that's great because we're not logging on every day feeling like we got to log on at 8 o'clock when I get home from work. You know, if life gets in the way, boom, it just backs up a little bit. You do 2 of them the next day or 3 of them the following day. It works really well.
yeah,
With
they
the
back up
app,
to
it
3.
also adds that too.
Mm-hmm. The new app, yep. What else? What else did Blizzard get right? It's more than that.
I think the scaling of the zones was also something that I enjoyed. At first, to be honest, so for example, when I hit 110 and like I was going back and doing my profession quests, I thought it was a bitch because I was like, wow, you know, they're taking me back to the first zone that I leveled through, and like in a normal circumstance, you know, I'd be one-shotting these mobs, and this would be a breeze to get through, and I'd be done with this skinning quest in 30 seconds. But, you know, it was taking me like 15 minutes because each of those mobs now scaled up to 110, and you know, they were difficult to kill, and you know, it was just it felt like the content was still relevant. And you know, when we have such limited content that can be put out in any given expansion, you know, there's only so much that you sort of steamroll through, and then everything else sort of becomes the status quo. And when everything scales, you're able to not only change how your leveling process works. For example, you know, I started off leveling in High Mountain and then Stormheim and so on and so forth. But if I wanted to switch it around and start leveling in you know, Val Shara or a different zone, like it would all be linear in the sense that like every quest would scale with my item level, or rather with my level, whatever. You know, I think that's probably one of the best things that they could have done at this point, was just have everything scale, because it maintains relativity to you and how you progress throughout the game.
Well, it's a good way for them to pace us, right? I mean, at
Yeah.
110, if you're going back and doing your progression stuff, or sorry, your profession stuff at 110, you're still going to have to work for it. So it's a great way. They can calculate, like, okay, it's going to take this person at least 10 seconds to kill a mob. You know, you start racking that up. They're really pacing us through the content so that it feels they're walking that line, right? They're walking that line between too grindy and, okay, is the content a joke? And I don't feel like it's a joke right now. Like, I still go do quests out, you know, world quests and profession quests, and I feel like, okay, I really am earning the things that I'm doing because I actually have to work for it. And I think that's a very big shift because they haven't done that in the past. And maybe they didn't have the technology to do it, but it's a blast.
Yeah, I think they got the lore right. That's always it's all about.
God, of all people,
Oh my
please,
God.
please.
So just so you guys know, Dylan is the quote unquote lore master in the guild. He knows absolutely nothing about lore, but yet he could talk for 3 hours about lore if you asked him to.
Make it up. Yeah, I can make up
right.
stuff. No, but on a serious note, I really think from an aesthetic point of view, I think that they got the zones right. Just the layout of the zones, I think they were absolutely beautifully done. And also the music. The music was awesome. It had a really good vibe to it when we were leveling. For those of you that play with sound, I know a lot of people don't like to play with sound, but I think that they did a really good job on the
Zero
music.
idea what the music sounds like
It's
throughout
good.
the entirety of Legion. So
Highly
I'll take your
recommend.
word for it. It's great, but I
Highly
have no
recommend.
idea what it
Two
sounds like.
types of
I
players.
can, I
two
can
types
second
of
that what
players.
Dylan says though, because the music was amazing. I actually didn't end up turning it on, and hopefully I don't sound too much like a robot and can differentiate what I'm saying. But it was actually really good. Going through Valshara was probably one of my favorite zones. It really brought me back to Felwood, and it was very nice to go through. It had that nostalgia feel going through it.
Yeah, it felt like the art team and the music team. I feel like I saw this on Reddit the other day that the unsung hero of the expansions was the music director, because I believe it's the same guy through most of the expansions, if not all of them. I don't quote me on that one, but I remember reading something briefly on Reddit. But the music has been so consistently good. And even if you just out in the world and you toggle your music on for 10 minutes, you'll know exactly what Dylan and Nate are talking about, because it just adds to the immersive value. I know a lot of us who are raiders turn all of our sound off just so we're listening to Discord, and that's pretty much it. Maybe Deadly Boss mods or something like that. But they did a great job of immersing us, the casual players and the hardcore players, in content that was really relevant and really different.
Yeah, it's incredibly underrated, and it's something a lot of us take for granted. We don't really think about the music in games like that, where you just kind of you want to play for the gameplay, not the music. But yeah, they did a beautiful job on it, and I really enjoyed it. So
yeah. All right, what else did they get right? They get anything else right? Nope, that's it, guys. Blizz, you only got 2 or 3 things right. Way to go.
A lot of shit to work on.
All right, so let's talk on the other side. I think I could talk for 20 more minutes about what they got right, but let's move on to what they got wrong. And by what, I don't mean to say they fucked it up, but what are the things that they can improve upon in the next couple content patches?
Pick me, please.
I pick you.
All right. So I just started leveling up a Vengeance Demon Hunter, and I think, and I can't speak for certain, but as a Vengeance Demon Hunter, I cannot die. Like, I cannot physically take on enough mobs to kill me, and I think that's very different from how I felt leveling up as an enhancement shaman, because as enhanced, like, I pull 3 or 4 mobs as like level 106 107, as my mythic Hellfire Citadel gear was sort of being phased out and becoming undertuned, and I was running into issues. But as a Vengeance Demon Hunter, like, going in as 700 item level, like, I could literally pull 10, 15 mobs at a time and end the fight at full health. So I don't know what it is. Maybe it'll change. I'm only like 102 on my Demon Hunter right now. But, I mean, there's got to be something going on with, like, the tuning of tanks at low levels versus DPS, because at this point in time, like, it just feels so ridiculous leveling up as Vengeance that, yeah, okay, fine, 1 mob takes me forever to kill, but, I mean, if you throw, like, 15 mobs at me, I have no trouble killing them, and that, to me, seems like an issue that maybe the scaling team needs to work with, or there needs to be some sort of adjustment needed, because it's crazy.
I mean, most of the other
And
tanks...
I can
Go ahead, Nate. Go ahead.
I can add a little bit on top of what Steve is saying, because I have played Prot out in the world, and I find myself going protection spec on my warrior. Pretty much anytime I'm not in a dungeon or I'm out of the actual halls of valor or Skyhold for the class hall. So yeah, you go out and you can pull as much as you want, and you're invincible for the most part. I mean, you can go out and do the World of Quest and the PvP Blackrock Hold, and I was like literally 1v4ing people and had no problem staying alive. So, yeah, I definitely think that a little bit of tuning needs to be done for the warriors, or for tanks in general.
Yeah.
Ignore pain.
I was gonna say, yeah,
Oh
because
my
Ignore
gosh,
Pain's
man.
not like the best ability in the game right now.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. Ignore Pain is absolutely overpowered. Inspiring Presence, too, that you can stack that at this point. I don't know if you know, but if you have...
Warriors out heal healers.
Yeah, Warriors right now are unbelievable with their Ignore Pain and Inspiring Presence. I think Inspiring Presence is what? It's like 5% leech to everybody in the raid or something, and you get that healing
I
as
think
a warrior.
3. I think
3%.
it's 3. Yeah,
It's
but
It's
unbelievable,
3%.
but it's also
It's ridiculous.
stackable. So
Yeah.
theoretically, you could have 20 prot warriors in a raid, and I don't think anyone would take any damage ever. So
Well, it's funny because, we talk about the tank healer dynamic and that Blizzard said that they were going to totally overhaul the tank healer dynamic. It's a bunch of BS at this point because the tanks, for the most part, are super self-sufficient.
Mostly.
Mostly, you'll definitely notice when you get a bad Demon Hunter tank, a bad
Yeah.
Brewmaster tank, because
Very true.
the mitigation and the aspects of playing a tank are still there. But let's talk about tanking in another regard, guys. So we're all doing our Withered training, and you guys can check out our other video, which is either coming up or already up based on when I put this video out, about the Withered training, because it is an interesting beast, because each of us in this channel, in this video right now, probably have a very different experience with Withered training. I personally, I'm a Beastmaster Hunter right now while I'm leveling. I love it. I have no problems. I got 4 large chests yesterday.
well, fuck you.
I'm just,
wait,
Seriously.
there are 4 large chests in that area.
they're right. I had no problem, but then you,
Dude, I get stuck on the crystal in the middle, have to hearth out, and then that's it. Like,
then-
my withered training's over for 3 days.
right,
so.
and then you have Kelsø, who's playing an enhancement shaman. Then you have Alýce and Dylan, who are playing Clothies, trying to figure out if Alýce wants to do it as a disc or shadow, and then Dylan as a mage, and then you have Nate, who probably has no problem with it.
You can go tank.
Yeah,
and
every one of the tanks in the guild
tank.
seems to be like, oh, wow, this is like the easiest thing in the world. And then every one of us is just like,
if I get
how
to 4,
do we get like 3 minutes into this without
I
dying?
can't
Yeah,
even
no.
get into the spider room.
if I get to 400
It's
reps,
literally
it's
for
miracle.
tanks just a Pikmin minigame. You run around, you take all this stuff, and you just wait for your wither to kill the shit.
It's
I
so
was-
interesting.
Yeah, I was watching a buddy of mine who's a prop pally. He was streaming, and I was watching his stream while he was doing it, and I was like, dude, you've been doing this shit for like 45 minutes. I think I last maybe 15 before I'm dead.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
there's definitely an interesting scaling issue, dynamic, whatever it is that Blizzard needs to, I think, figure out to even it out between like DPS healers and tanks, because tanks by far right now have the easiest ability, and it sucks because like everybody right now is grinding for Nightfall and rep because we want to unlock Court of the Stars and the Arcway and whatever, and the further you get into Withered training, the more rep you get, and the faster it is to unlock those dungeons, and to be on the short end of that stick sucks.
Yes,
Yeah.
it does.
I mean, for me, I think that tanks obviously are having a lot better time with it, but I think it's a lot has to do with because it's so early in the expansion. So if you guys don't know a whole lot about it, at the end, if you get chests, you get a chance to get these permanent buffs that'll buff a lot of your withered. And for me, I'm a mage. I really want to get, what are they, the berserkers that
Berserkers,
actually they tank. And that's huge for me, so I don't have to face tank. Which is as a mage, like you don't want to take somebody hitting you and interrupting your casts and stuff like that. As a tank, you don't have to worry about that because you can just tank them yourself. So for me, at the end of each wither training, which you can do once every 3 days, you have a chance to get a buff, which is cool. You can increase their health, you can increase their damage with these buffs. So the longer we go, it's going to be better for the Clothies and the DPS classes that can't necessarily tank as well. But by the time you get 800 out of 1200 Nightfall and rep, is it really worth it or does it even matter?
Yep.
You know what I mean? So at that point, it's like, yeah, I can have an easier time doing this, but I don't need to do it anymore because I don't care anymore because I've unlocked Court of Stars and Arcway.
Right.
Yeah, there's definitely some tank stuff that they're going to need to figure out because I can see. I even as with berserkers, even with I think I had one when I went in the other day, they don't last as long as you need them to. Like you're even if you went in and you had a full 20 withered and a berserker, you still probably wouldn't get as far as a tank or a Beastmaster Hunter because you just can't control all of the stuff that you have to do. So
And
there's
you can't heal
definitely
them.
and you can't heal them.
Exactly.
So there's definitely some stuff, just little things. I mean, I don't think that's a game changer. I think it obviously gets under our skin a little bit, but it's not a game changer. Blizzard just needs to figure out how the tanking fits into the leveling and the world stuff before the raiding. Because who knows? Obviously, healers and tanks are dependent on each other in the raid environment. So that's tuning may be set for that. But that's a whole nother issue.
And not only do tanks have that survivability, they also do massive DPS right now. I mean, they do like massive, especially on trash. I mean, as a mage, I'm a fire mage right now. Without taking Living Bomb, if I wouldn't take that particular talent, a tank would beat me on trash. Yep. Like, just because they have a massive amount of AoE and they have so much survivability that it's like almost comical compared to like me, for instance. So it's like, something they need to figure out.
I think a lot of that comes from the tuning, and you know, I think Cody's onto something where, you know, maybe Blizzard's tuning for like Mythic Plus dungeons onward, you know, Mythic Plus and raids, where, you know, the dynamic between healers and tanks and DPS and tanks become much more, I guess, separated, where like, you know, healers are going to be needed to heal the tanks because tanks are taking way too much damage in raids and Mythic Pluses than they are in just regular Mythics and Heroic dungeons. So, you know, they may be overtuned for those, but, you know, are in line with where they were being tuned for the entire expansion. But, you know, again, that brings up an issue that I think is pertinent to a lot of us who are still progressing through the content, and, you know, maybe they need to figure out, okay, well, you know, at the beginning of the expansion, tanks are going to be super overpowered, so, you know, maybe we should seriously consider, you know, a scaling method for tanks at the beginning of an expansion, and then, you know, work on scaling sort of along the way and as we go, because, you know, right now it's you know, having a tank solo the remaining like 45 seconds to a minute of a Mythic dungeon boss is,
which has happened.
It's like kind of concerning, you know, like, oh wow, this guy can survive a minute by himself, whether it be self-healing. Right. So, right, exactly. But, you know, where if you look at the snapshot of where we are right now, it's like, you know, this is the content that we have available, so this is sort of how we see things happening, and it, you know, from what we see, it's sort of concerning, and that may be okay depending on how Mythic Pluses go once we get there. And, you know, this may be irrelevant in 2 weeks when we start getting into Mythic Plus, but as of right now, like, as an enhancement shaman, as a, you know, DPS warrior, as a mage, you know, like, these are things that we're all like, wow, okay, we're sitting here for a minute dead, and this guy's finishing the rest of the dungeon for us. Like, that's, you know, that kind of
shouldn't happen. Yeah, it just feels weird, untuned. It just lets you know that there's a tuning issue somewhere.
Well, here's the thing too. As the raids come out, we're going to start seeing the gap widen, right? Especially with gear and item level moving up. So the scaling system is designed for level, right? It's not designed to accommodate for our eye level. So all of a sudden, you're going to see, yes, tank survivability will go up, but you're also going to see a massive increase in DPS output going out. So maybe DPS are designed to catch up a little bit at the back end, because especially as we start getting, the 870, 880 gear, you're going to see DPS start to take off and leave the tank specifically, but also just widen the gap. So you may not be able to face tank any better, but you'll have a little bit more survivability, and you're going to be outputting a ton more DPS. So which changes everything that we've talked about already, the world quests, all of that stuff. And what concerns me is that going to make it irrelevant? Is that going to bring me back to a place where, okay, I'm full 880 gear, I've got a legendary, I've got my artifact up to some ungodly eye level.
We may not have a legendary. Who knows?
Seriously, I don't think any of us have legendaries.
Who knows?
The legendary system. Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about legendaries. You know, everybody is like, we all know which legendary we want. We know we have our first choice, our backup of our backup, and we've gotten we've gotten two shitty ones and one good one.
I'm tired of order hall resources, please.
Listen, I sit in the Enhancement Shaman Discord like a majority of the day, and when people say, oh yeah, like the Feral Druid in my guild has gotten 3 legendaries so far, I'm like, hello, I think we've gotten 3 legendaries in our entire guild at this
seriously.
point. You know, like it's just something seems off, and I don't like it.
You would have think after not getting beta keys that they would have at least given us some legendaries.
Yeah.
Come on, Blizz.
Yeah, for real. Though.
Shout out
I mean,
to Holinka here. You know.
It's a
I
good.
was still hoping that since Dylan was getting all the cloth gear, I was gonna get a legendary.
It would have made it so much better for you, I'm
It's just
sure.
not
Yes, it
happening.
would.
And you know what? It's an interesting thing because when they first announced legendaries, I was on the fence. I was like, okay, you're already giving us artifacts, and now you're giving us legendaries. You're telling us we're gonna get 1, 2, 3 of them in an expansion. So that's 3 pieces of gear I won't need to replace for quite some time. But then you get into a shitty situation like Curse, one of our warlocks, where he's has the right loot spec selected, and he gets a stat stick. He gets one of the crappy shared.
He gets a defensive legendary.
Yeah, he gets a
right?
defensive
Yeah.
legendary.
I
How
got the
is
one that every class could get.
Yep.
and look, that's great if you're just a a casual player that is doing world content, you get a legendary, it's exciting, and I don't want to take that away from anybody. But from a rating perspective, it helps in terms of his stats and his eye level, but it doesn't really help us in terms of that effect and making his play style any better.
Well, I mean, in terms of like, let's just think of it in like world firsts. Like a lot of that is going to be dependent on how many legendaries their particular guild got and how lucky they got to get those legendaries, because it's, as far as we know, completely random. And I mean, it's a very low drop chance, but some people have gotten 3, some people have gotten, their entire guild hasn't gotten one yet. So let's just say like Midwinter got 3 and like another guild got 0 that was pushing world first. Like that's going to be a big upgrade for them.
My impression was that for the first couple of weeks of raiding, that like Blizzard was turning off legendaries. I mean, entirely. Now that
What?
that may be
No,
that may be.
It's-
Well,
I
they
I
took
don't know.
that away.
They took that away. Okay.
Yeah, because they nerfed the legendaries.
That sounds like something
But I
you
mean,
send them
even
like
then-
a fan email that said, hey, can you turn off legendaries for a couple weeks?
Well, I mean, see, it depends. Like, if Blizzard is going to go through the process and be like, okay, well, now it's the last week before raids, and we said that everybody would have at least 1 legendary before going into raids, so they implemented some sort of like catch-up mechanism where, you would get a legendary before the first raid was released. Like, that would be one thing. But to say, oh, well, the majority of people will have a legendary, and then like have people like us, where I think every single one of us in this chat right now are legendary lists, is substantial, because this is technically like 1/5 of our roster for Mythic raids without legendaries. Like, that's substantial. So, it's not easy, because some legendaries are game changers. Like if you have the Mage ring, where it's like, oh hey, you get 2 lusts,
Can't wait.
whatever. Like, it's just
Yeah.
it's stupid. It's really ridiculous as far as like that kind of game changing mechanisms. Or you get like one of the crappier legendaries where it's like, oh well, your movement speed is increased by like 75% of your haste. It's like, well, as a mage, how much is that really going to help you? It's just a stat stick at that point. So yes, legendaries will help, I think, along the way, as far as being like 60 item level increases in gear. But if you don't get like that one legendary that really changes your gameplay and turns your whole class on its head because of how great it is, you're really not in a better place overall. It's just like, okay, well, you just have a better piece in that particular slot than most other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
And yeah, it's obviously we're a little bit bitter about this legendary situation because we
I don't
the
have
best
3
luck.
legendaries
Yeah.
to speak about. So,
Not that it would matter, because you can only have 1 equipped at this point.
Somebody on our one of our YouTube pages said that his friend got one at 106, and I said, I don't think you can. That
yeah, I don't know if
I
you
don't think
can.
you
I think,
Doubt it, but
I mean, it's just interesting, last little bit on legendaries and then we'll move on. I wonder if Blizzard, think of it as a water faucet. I know they've said that they've implemented some type of, okay, you've been playing, you don't have one, so you're upping the chances. I wonder if they're going to look at the numbers of people that have them. Are they going to turn the faucet on right before the raids drop in the next Tuesday to Tuesday cycle, and you're just going to see a slew of them, or is it going to be consistent? And are we going to be going into Emerald Nightmare with 3 legendaries, one of which is okay and the 2 which are just crap? I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see how they keep managing that system, because it was definitely a unique and different solution for them going into Legion. So we'll see how they keep tailoring that one. But let's go back to leveling, guys. So the leveling experience is, for me, it's a lot of fun. I know I was up with you guys at 2 a.m, whatever. I couldn't talk, so I wasn't really in Discord. So I was just enjoying the process. And for me, some of these zones are my favorite zones that I've ever leveled through. They just captured the essence of the game. They captured the essence of what being an MMO and what World of Warcraft is all about. So what is your favorite zone in Legion? It could be anything. It could be a dungeon. It could be a leveling zone. It could be a city, a town hall, whatever you want to. What is your favorite zone and why?
Oh man, I would say
Loaded question.
there's a ton of I think that they did.
I don't have enough booze to answer this question accurately here.
Yeah, they did aesthetically, like we talked about earlier. They did a awesome job at creating these zones. The thing that sticks out to me personally is Valshara. Just leveling up the first time, I thought that they did such a good job with that zone in particular, and I don't know. I just really enjoyed that zone compared to maybe Stormheim, where everything was more spread out. I think I'm kind of judging these zones based on like how easy it was to quest in them, and I think Valshara was a little bit easier than Stormheim, or a little maybe even High Mountain, but. I really have to say that they did a great job on all the zones that I've been in, all 5 zones. I think that's absolutely beautiful, and I've had a good time, leveling and playing in all of them, doing world quests. I don't have a particularly least favorite, but I don't know.
Yeah, go ahead, Nate.
For the leveling process, it was definitely a lot of fun in Valshara. But I did actually enjoy Stormheim with the grappling hook. That was a lot of fun for me.
Interesting. It was interesting.
Fuck off. That grappling hook was the worst.
I loved it. I was
worst.
You can thank Steve for the explicit tag on this YouTube video.
Yeah,
yes,
seriously.
yes, please. No.
It's not the alcohol. It's
just Steve.
No,
it's the grappling hook.
It's the grappling hook. But normally I would say like, Azuna or Valshara would be probably my favorite. However, as much as I disliked leveling in High Mountain and Stormheim, I think that the 2 things that those zones had that the others didn't was just the vertical aspect to them. Like, they were just very much all over the place. They were large zones, but they were also like, they had a lot of climbing to them. And it sucked. If you didn't, the majority of us here weren't a part of beta, so we didn't really have that leveling experience through them. So I was clueless as to, this quest, you needed to use the grappling hook and shit to get up to this end boss. But, that was cool, because guess what? At the end of it, when you killed that son of a bitch, you got to Goblin Glider, all the way down, and you pick up the flight paths that you didn't get to pick up on the way up. And, it was really neat that Blizzard really incorporated the vast expanse of the zone, but also, horizontally, but now also vertically.
Yeah.
Alice, what about you?
Well, Dylan said my favorite zone while leveling, but I know you guys hated it, but I really like Halls of Valor.
Oh my god.
And
You should roll
Leave. Get out.
the trash is horrible, but the boss mechanics
They're cool.
I find really
The bosses are
interesting.
cool.
They're all
Yeah.
different, and
Very different and
you
beautiful. And that zone,
especially as a
honestly,
disc, you really have to think about what's going on in those boss fights to be able to keep people alive.
the zone is beautiful too.
I will
Yeah.
give them a shout out for that though. They did an excellent job on all of the mechanics of all the boss fights. So they were all interesting.
Most
I don't think there's any boss fights I can think of this oh my god, this is stupid, or oh my god, this is so basic,
Listen,
like a patchwork fight.
When I'm dying to
they all have
Elia,
some
in Modern Souls because I can't zoom my camera out far enough, there's a problem.
Dude, yeah, they need to fix that. They definitely need to fix that. That is
love
not
the boss.
okay.
I love the boss and I love the zone, but like that's the only one that I actually did, and I was like,
Hell
I
yeah.
really
Can I say
hate
a
this.
spoiler?
The camera on Hell Yeah is
I
not
think
great.
the main reason you hate it, Cody, was because you didn't have DVM screaming at you. You actually had to look for it.
My God.
He couldn't be max
Shots
hammer
fired.
distance, and it triggered him.
God. He's never even raided
So-
with me.
Cody,
Yes.
can I
Alex.
say a
Give me-
spoiler alert?
Give me spoilers.
because I heard
Is
that
that lore?
Helia is going to be a boss in the in-between raid.
She is.
That's
she
it.
is.
I'm
she
done.
was
I'm not
announced.
playing anymore.
It's
Fuck
her,
it.
Odin,
Hey.
and what the heck is the Hydra thing? I can't remember his name. I did a video on it. If you guys want to check that
Oh,
out.
did you?
Yeah, it was for the Karazhan patch. They released it.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I
so-
didn't realize that they
Mhm.
talked about it.
They did. They're tying it up. I think it's called the Trial of. Oh, I can't remember off the top of my head. But anyways, there's another video on it. It's Odin, Helia, and this Hydra-looking thing. Quick little raid between Emerald Nightmare and Nighthold. So coming out probably November, December would be my guess.
I would think, yeah, probably.
So
for
that's going to
Christmas,
tie
right?
us over until Nighthold. Yep, definitely going to tie. And that's, they're going to use that to get more players in at Christmas, hopefully. Fight Odin, fight Helia, or whatever. But anyways.
That'll be fun.
I have to say, and I know this was a contentious point, especially at 3 in the morning when everybody was bitchy, but I loved High Mountain, and that's because I'm a hunter. It's because I'm a hunter. My class order hall is there. It felt like I was part of the wilderness. And look, I'm not a huge lore guy, but I am an immersion guy. I love being immersed in the game and really being surrounded by it. And I had my music on, I had my sound on, and I just loved questing. I had my glider because I was an engineer. So just flying down from some of the mountaintops, the vertical element that Kelsø was talking about, it was a lot of fun. High Mountain, some of those quests, like the Escort Ethel quest, was absolutely garbage.
I heard
but-
they changed that, right?
Did they change it?
I heard
I
they.
don't know.
Well, the rumor was that they were going to increase their speed,
Oh my god.
which they need to because that was atrocious.
It's like that Owlkin quest in
It was the
Suramar.
RP walk. I
Yeah.
hate the RP walk. It was just not.
Did you-
You're trying to level so fast, and you have to actually walk with this. Oh man.
There's like
I have no idea what any of the cutscenes are like in Legion right
No,
now.
no, escape,
because I've
click.
skipped
Oh my
every
God.
single one of them.
all right. Well, you missed some golden moments, especially the ones in Velshara with Ysera. There was
Oh
some
yeah,
really
yeah. I heard
like,
that bitch was just like
oh my
all
god,
up in there.
Kelsø. It was. There's some good stuff.
I don't care.
Don't skip anything, guys. If
Haven't you leveled 2 other characters?
Oh my God.
No, I mean I'm still on my Demon Hunter right now, so negative on that one.
Anyways, let's move on. So we've talked about all the zones except for Suramar. So Suramar was supposed to be this world quest, like expansive quest zone hub that keeps growing and keeps evolving as we keep progressing through Legion. And it feels like that, and it definitely felt like that when you got into Suramar. Overwhelming, so much to do. What do we feel like right now? How has Suramar progressed? Dylan, you get to talk last because you're just going to shit on it.
What?
All right, I'll talk first then, because I actually
Well, while he
like
does that, I'm
Suramar.
gonna get another drink. I'll be right back.
Can you get me one, please?
So, I actually enjoy Suramar. I think they did a good job picking the zone to hold out for at the very end. I like the whole design of it. It's kind of got like that whole Italy feel to it, like the Venice feel,
Very cool.
with all the channels in between all of the different areas. There's lots of little hidden gems that you can find. I mean, there's a zoo, for Christ's sakes.
It's a menagerie.
A menagerie, my mistake. But anyways, I really enjoyed just the whole feel of the zone. I mean, getting used to the portals is taking a little getting used to, considering they don't really show you where you're going. So I end up going in one and being like, oh, this is the wrong one. Let's go back in this portal. And then jumping in another one. Nope, still wrong again. Go back in. So I find myself doing that a lot.
I have no
wish
clue
that
where those
was, like-
portals go.
I know. It's like a crapshoot. But the quests have definitely been fun, and I've enjoyed them a lot.
It's
And the
amazing
zone
how
is really cool,
dense-
along with the music.
It's amazing
Yeah.
how dense that zone is.
11 chapters. Yeah, I have to say,
Mhm.
I know you said I'll talk last. Alice, you go before I talk. Alice's turn.
gotta wait for
I
Kelsø
was
too,
gonna
he's
say
making a drink.
He doesn't get a turn.
this is where I think that they didn't mean for people to rush it, and they did some of that by gating off what, the last 2 sections or whatever with rep.
Yeah, yeah. 30,
But
I think.
you're really not supposed to finish the other 8 in the first week. I mean, we've been really pushing it to get through those dungeons, which I believe most raiders are going to do, but you still have the people that are a little more casual that are going to be able to go in, maybe do 1 section of it, and then log off, and then go back or do other things and come back, and they're going to have months of content just going through the quest line in that zone. And yes, it's absolutely beautiful just walking through it and farming ancient mana or whatever. But yeah, I feel like rushing through it, it's definitely overwhelming, and it's a little too much if you're trying to rush through it.
Yeah, I mean, no matter how much content they give us, I think we're the high end. I don't mean to sound snotty when I say this. The high end community is always just going to stay up later, push themselves further to make sure that they can do it. Like I think there's a handful or maybe half dozen of the Exiled Power Raiders that are already past the rep gate to do Archway and Court of Stars. It's week 3, and they're already there. So that was not their week 2. It's not their intention to do that. But it's going to happen. But like you said, there's going to be a slew of people, casual people that maybe are just getting there or about to get there, and they're going to enjoy the crap out of Suramar because it is a beautiful zone. The city element is really cool. The masquerade element of that is really cool, blending in with the society. And you know what really is cool to me, and you guys may disagree with me, I love the fact that there's not breadcrumb quests to every single thing in Suramar. Like, that feeling of exploration has been so apparently missing from a lot of the expansions in the last 2 specifically, that it feels like the exploration element of Suramar is really fun.
I have a comment on that before you go on, because I had a profession quest down in the southwest in that fell area, all the way down in the southwest, and I'm running from the cave, right? It took me 4 hours to get down there because I kept finding quest chains to do
Yeah.
Oh my God.
while I was on my way.
If you're a completionist, like I think Alýce just mentioned, and I am the same way, if I find a quest, I need to do it right then. I'm this exact same way, and you almost get distracted because there's so much to do in Suramar that if you haven't done it, you really want to get it done because you may not be back in that area because it's so
right,
dense.
and you'll forget where it is.
Right. But I know Cody said that he didn't want me to talk about it. I might bash it a little bit. So I just finished Suramar, I think 2 days ago. I got 8 of 11, stories done, or chapters done. I actually didn't mind it as much as I thought I was going to. I personally, going back to maybe like the rep gate that we were talking about a while ago, you have to get 8,000 of 12,000. With the Nightfallen, or reputation with the Nightfallen, to unlock the Court of Stars and the Archway. I personally do not like that concept at all. I think it was good on Blizzard's end because it's going to keep you playing a long time. And that was the issue that they may have struggled with in WoD, where, people didn't have enough to do. There's almost too much to do now. Personally, I hate the rep gate because if I'm playing, say I want to play a game of Overwatch, I'll have people mention to me, like, why are you not playing WoW? Like, why are you not, you have to be playing WoW right now.
Why
because
are
you
you the way that you are?
Yeah, why are you playing a game that you really want to play when, you should be playing WoW 24 hours a day?
It's not as good as WoW. God.
No, and I'm not saying that it is. I know I love WoW. I hate the feeling that, like, if I play WoW so much, and I want to play like one game of Overwatch, I feel almost guilty that I'm not playing WoW. I feel like I'm getting behind.
You're cheating on WoW with Overwatch.
I am. It sucks.
No, I feel that because I feel the same way, like leveling up an alt right now, and it's just because I don't want to grind world quests all day long. Like I get home from work at 6:30, right, and I have dinner and whatever, so I may not get on until like 8:30 at night, and like the last thing I want to do is go from 8:30 to 12:30, in the morning, doing world quests and Suramar and all this stuff. And like I realize what I need to do, and that be get as much, Nightfallen reputation that I can. But at the end of the day, like, it's still a game for me, and we're not a world first guild, and we have that kind of relationship with one another where it's like, okay, well, you're you're gonna get where you need to be by raid time, by the time raids come out. So realistically, do you need to sacrifice every single night up until that point in order to get there? And the answer is no. I think for us, we have expectations of one another. Okay, be at this checkpoint by this time, but for the people that want to achieve above and beyond what we've set, that's great. If you don't happen to get there, okay, it's not the end of the world. It really isn't like, you're not really setting yourself too far behind. So at the end of the day, Suramar is great, but I'm certainly within the confines of, or at least the same mentality that, like, there is just a lot to do, and it depends on, how you play the game. And if you're taking time off from work to play the game, okay, you have all day to get world quests done. But when I get home and I log on to the game, like, okay, I want to get my Suramar quests done, and any potential upgrade world quests done, and then after that, like, if I want to log on my Demon Hunter or any alt, like, I don't want to feel guilty for not playing my main. The same thing like Dylan. Like, if I want to play another game, I don't want to feel guilty doing it. And sometimes, like, that's just how I feel, especially as of late, like, as I'm slowly I'm on that cusp of unlocking Court of the Stars and the Arcway. And, if I'm not doing everything in my power to unlock those 2 dungeons, it's like I feel like I'm doing a disservice to everybody else. And, like, that's something, that's pressure that I put on myself, but it's inadvertently because of Blizzard. Like, fuck them. Like, god damn it.
Well, now we're never getting sponsored.
Son of a bitch. No,
I
but
felt guilty going on my honeymoon, man. I freaking
You should.
had to
That
be
was
gone for
totally
like a whole week.
ridiculous.
You shouldn't enjoy yourself, Nate. Why would
I
you?
should not enjoy myself. I shouldn't go to Disneyland and go chill with Mickey Mouse,
I'm very disappointed
I
that you
should be
didn't bring a
playing World of
laptop.
Warcraft, getting geared up, making sure I'm ready to go come
Yeah.
next week.
Take it to the hotel. Play in your off time.
Listen, she has
I
to
know.
sleep at some point.
right? But you don't.
You don't need sleep.
All right.
White monsters exist for a reason.
All right, let's take
God.
let's take a minute. Let's take a quick minute and talk about something a little bit different. It doesn't need to be super in depth because I'm sure we're all going to feel very similarly about the issue. What do you guys think of the new profession system? Yeah, that's pretty much how I feel about it too,
I
right?
haven't started mine.
sucks.
I haven't started mine yet. So.
It's cool in theory.
It's interesting.
Yes, it is cool in theory. Like the whole star
in
system.
practice, it's obnoxious.
It
Unlocking
really is.
all the quests, and it's cool, like getting your first couple, but then just let me buy the patterns. Like, seriously, I don't need to go to like 20 different places to do my alchemy shit.
I didn't understand the stress on going back to old world places. Like, for engineering specifically, there was, Reeves. Reeves is the new, repair bot / bank / whatever. There was one part where you're trying to unlock, like, the Blingtron aspect of Reeves. So basically, I create a battery, and I can turn him into anything that if I've created the module for it. But the Blingtron quest literally sent me to every main engineering hub in every expansion. It was like 7 or 8 places, and I
Wow.
just didn't get it because
I
it
thought
was.
the alchemy one was bad.
But that's the thing. Like the portal, there's no portals to places like K2 up in,
Unless you use the engineering portal.
yeah. Well, look, most of
K2, like in in
Netherstorm or whatever the heck that place was called.
Yeah.
It was.
I think that's really cool and really smart of Blizz because they made all this content that's been coming out every year and it's not getting, brushed under the rug per se,
I can see it from that angle.
But I'm a mage too, so my opinion is biased. I can just port wherever I want to go, so it's not
hard.
Yeah, it's so can be at this point.
I don't even know what a
there's
Hearthstone
really,
is. Yeah.
I mean,
It's
there's
true.
really no
Yeah.
difference because
You've
you
got,
just
like,
port to
7 rank
Dalaran.
That's
You
very
have
true.
your-
Say
Earth
this
and
about
wherever.
professions. Like, they really capitalized on all of the crafting professions as far as smithing, leatherworking, tailoring, all the ones that you need the pieces for your Obliterum Forge. And someone like me wasn't too concerned about getting my forge unlocked the first week, and was gone this whole second week. I mean, I'm pretty much just gonna chill out and waiting for these crafted pieces to drop substantially in price for even unlock my Obliterum
I was going
forge.
to say, has
because-
anybody here unlocked their Obliterum Forge?
I think Sean has, which is he's a healer in our guild. He's playing DPS this expansion.
I mean, it's just,
but other
it's
than
so
that, I
much
think
money.
he's the only one.
It's
Yeah.
so much money. The
I thought I saw a
market.
couple, but
You know, but the thing is, it's not the like, okay, fine, it may cost you a couple 100,000 gold, like, to unlock it, but
only
like,
that. That's like everything I have.
okay,
That's
true,
the
true.
thing.
But what I'm saying is, like, to be one of the first people to unlock it, like, if you're not interested in making money, like, for me, I could give a shit about, making money in the game. Like, I just want to play it, and, you
Right.
know, like, that's just, like, I don't care if I unlock it or not right now. Like, as of this moment, if I'm netting from selling Obliterum, it makes no difference to me. And
Yeah.
I have the pieces that I've made for myself, but otherwise I still have a couple pieces that I need to make in order to unlock my forge, so it's not a big deal. To me anyway. To other people, to other guilds that are progressing a lot faster than we may be looking to do come Emerald Nightmare, that may be a big deal, but I think for us and for our purposes, like, it's not a game changer.
Here's my thing about professions. Professions for a person who's trying to make gold is all about making gold, right? The Obliterum people are flooding the market with Obliterum at 6K, 8K a pop. There's been a lot of posts on Reddit about Obliterum flooding the market, and I get it. There are people that play the game to make money and hit gold cap, and whatever they do with that money, I don't know because I don't have it. But then there is our aspect of the game where we need professions to help us raid, specifically enchanting and alchemy. And when the market is either really overinflated, or there's just stuff that we don't have yet, like a lot of the potions, a lot of the stuff, like, it's very different, it's very new. Specifically, like, the potions are so different than they were in Warlords. It's not like
they're like weapon enchants.
they're like weapon enchants.
Yeah.
And so you have this new aspect of the game being controlled by a different population of the game other than the raiders. It's a very interesting system. I thought that, as Alice said, I think she said it perfectly, it looked good on paper, and it would have been cool in theory, but it's just not, like, has anybody capped both of their professions yet?
Oh.
I doubt it. Highly doubt it.
Well, in our guild, I mean, I'm sure there's people that have just done that, but in our guild, I mean, I see no point in trying to rush and cap my engineering when everything is ridiculously expensive. I don't have a gathering
I
profession.
think I spent like 5K just to get the herbs that I needed for my one quest.
And here's what I'll say.
It was ridiculous.
The boons, they need to up the rate
Yeah.
at which we are getting the boon items. So for you guys who don't know, your rep for each individual faction in the game can give you a boon, which is a shoulder enchant. They're bringing back shoulder enchants, but what the boon does is it allows you to pick up some type of item off of the mobs that you kill out in the world. So obviously interplay with the world quests and your continued questing in Suramar. And you can get a boon of the Butcher, which allows you to collect extra meat off of mobs, or a boon of the Mana Scavenger, or the Mana Rager, or whatever the heck it's called, which allows you to pick up extra mana from mobs for Suramar quest lines. And that's how they can fix it for the Mythic Raiders. The boons barely drop now. I have boon of the Scavenger, or whatever it's called, for cloth, and it barely drops. It barely drops. And it's like 20 cloth. So you have a market being controlled by gold people, and then you have us trying to level professions just so we can get into raiding. It's a very, very interesting system that they seem to have developed.
Yeah, I'll agree. I think boons are an interesting way to go about things,
Boons.
especially when especially when you can pick up the one where it gives you like an herbalist satchel or whatever the hell it is, and you get fish from it, and then you get an achievement for like getting like it seems
Yeah, I don't like that they didn't split them up for the different gathering.
Agreed. But I think it's a good way. I still don't really have any idea as to what goes on with these boons of whatever, because I don't really care. Yeah, boons. But I think they're interesting. They have a way to interact with what you're doing and like play somewhat of a part into maybe what you're looking for, as far as like, well, are you looking for more like raw mats, or are you looking for something else, or
Ancient Mana.
Look, in theory, we're the ones who are doing all of the world quests, the raiders, the people that are constantly trying to progress their characters. We're not the ones that are constantly working on our professions. So the boon should play to the strengths of the people that are doing that content. And they don't right now because the drop rate is so low. Like, it's an interesting system. They just need to tweak it, honestly. They just need to tweak it, and I think it'd be in a good place.
I mean, in my experience, I think I've got like Boon of the Harvester or something, and I would say that the drop rate of that is like maybe 3%, if not less. I mean, I seriously might have gotten like 5 in my playtime.
And it's always fish.
Yeah, and it's literally always fish. It's never what you actually need. Like, and I will say that I do like they brought back like gathering professions, because in WoD they were pointless and meaningless.
Yeah, with the garrisons.
Because all the stuff was so inexpensive, and you would get so much with you had your mining area and your herbalism area. Like, you didn't need to be an herbalist or a miner to be able to get that stuff. So it was like,
but God, that shocked the market though.
So,
like, remember how much ore cost like the first couple days of Legion launch?
Yeah.
Like, it was like 10K a stack or 10K for 20. Yep. It was insane.
Because nobody was those professions, because you didn't have to be.
Right.
So
we dropped all of them. We dropped all of them in WoD. We leveled it because it was super easy to level them up to 700 for WoD. And then the people that kept them were the smart ones, because now gathering is back in a big way.
Yeah.
But
you can't get the rare materials unless you are a gatherer.
Mm-hmm. But anyways, moving on from profession. So we just hit the 1 hour mark, guys. We got a couple more things we should talk about, because we haven't.
It's been an hour already? Wow, we should drink all the time.
If there are people still here, I would be amazed. We'll check the Google Analytics later. I guarantee you there'll be like one person. It'll be my mom or something. I saw you on the YouTube.
It'll be me.
So anyways, all right, let's talk about a couple big
more
things.
Wine.
I went and grabbed another beer. I know you guys can't see it, but I grabbed another beer while somebody was talking. So let's.
Go grab mine.
All right, you grab some wine. Let's talk.
I'm listening.
Let's talk about dungeons, guys. We touched upon it a little bit.
Man.
It has been one of my favorite dungeon. Well, I say favorite. It's been 90% good, 10% shitty. I hate Eye of Ashara and I hate Halls of Valor, but only because of certain reasons. Other than that, I love the dungeons. So what do you guys think? What are your favorite dungeons? What do you like about them? What don't you like about them?
Maw of Souls is fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Absolutely. Yeah. No. On a serious note, it's a great dungeon because it's so short. But the last boss, she's
tough.
No,
well,
I think
you know what?
boss...
She's not hard, but it's the view distance that you get is very difficult to get used to, because you're used to like being able to zoom all the way out. But for this particular boss, your view distance is severely limited by the fact that you have the ship behind you, and it's not friendly to a large view distance, and so that's what makes it tough.
Say that's Blizz's way of being like, yeah, we took away your camera distance and then we gave it back to you, but we're gonna give you this boss that has like no camera view distance at all.
Yeah.
So have a good time with it.
It's just so awkward. It's right in between giving me enough camera and not giving me enough. Like, it's not that I'm super uptight or I'm super far away. It's like right in the middle where I cannot see. And when you have a mechanic that relies on looking at where her face
unforgiving.
is...
It's unforgiving. It's so unforgiving.
The whole point of that is to see where she's breathing her stupid corrupted bellow thing or whatever it's called. Yeah. I can't see if I can't see her face.
It's a really cool boss fight, but as raiders, you're so used to being as far back as you can, and that was one of our biggest concerns for Legion when they fixed the draw distance, when they basically like condensed your camera to where you couldn't have that console max factor distance that we're so used to, and you had to be so close to your character. Like, it felt so uncomfortable for us. They put it back in, which is good for Legion, but for a boss like that you've got something behind you where you can't draw yourself back that far, it's especially with Helya's mechanics, like they're so unforgiving that I feel like you need to have a bigger draw distance to play competently almost.
Well,
so
it's not the only boss that's had that issue though.
It's true.
Even before.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I mean, we could just talk about like Halls of Valor as a whole and be like, yeah, well, this is a great 2-hour dungeon, so let me just,
So
set
long.
aside my
2
entire
hours.
So
night to do
long.
this
It's
one
so
dungeon.
long. It's so
There's a lot of trash.
Well, that seems to be a very common trend. Like I have Ashara, Halls of Valor, freaking Vault of the Wardens, which I love, but it's got they've all got a lot of trash.
Yeah.
And I think Vault was actually, I think it was like 10 minutes of trash at one point in between two bosses when I did my dungeon guide video, because I had to time it, and it was a ridiculous amount of trash in between two of the bosses, and then in between the other ones, it was like a minute.
Right.
Yeah.
I will say
which
that it's
I think
noticeable. Oh,
adds
go
to
ahead.
it.
I will say that it's noticeable in terms of like pugging, for instance, like a heroic, or pugging maybe if you missed like a mythic. But doing, our mythics with our guild and our dungeon groups has been so much easier than pugging, because you can tell when somebody isn't using their cooldowns on trash. And definitely like within the guild, you're smart enough to know like when a boss is coming up. Do I have 2 minutes to blow this 2-minute cooldown before the boss starts? Because there's a lot of trash between these bosses, especially in some of the longer dungeons where there's 5 bosses. There's a lot of trash, and there's enough time for you to get a 2-minute or 3-minute cooldown out of the way to help you save some time in this trash. But I've spent a lot of time between bosses just because people are afraid to blow their big cooldowns.
Yeah, I'm hoping that the raids, and I haven't done Emerald Nightmare. I don't think any of us have done Emerald Nightmare, or even any testing of it. I barely seen any footage of it.
Xavius.
You did Xavius. I haven't seen any footage, a little bit, but I'm praying that there's not an hour's worth of trash between each boss, because that's the last thing I want to do is clear trash. The HFC trash was fine. I thought it was a decent amount. It was a little frustrating, which I think trash should be. It uses similar mechanics to what the boss that you're going to be seeing is using. But for dungeons, like especially like if you're doing a pickup group like Dylan's talking about, God, the last thing I want to do is trash with a pickup group. It's just gonna take forever.
Especially that trash. The Halls of Valor trash is really hard too.
Because it's tight. It's tight.
It's tight. It stuns your healer, and you can't do anything about it. And there's other things going on, debuffs and all these mechanics that you can't look at the dungeon journal for trash mechanics. It's just not in there.
Yeah.
So you just kind of have to figure
I'm
it
pretty
out
sure
as you
if
go.
you could, it would say have a Havoc Demon Hunter in your group at all times to
Yeah,
do
that too.
5 million.
Seriously.
Prop
Dude,
warrior.
I've had Havoc Demon Hunters that have just absolutely been garbage. Look, there's nothing. Sure, I'm sure Havoc Demon Hunters are really well tuned right now, but you still need to know how to play your class, and that's. I mean, Alice, I'm
You're
sure
right.
you've probably healed.
I beat a Havoc. Havoc's a DPS spec, right?
Havoc is a
Yeah.
DPS, yes.
Yeah. I was beating a Havoc Demon Hunter as disc in DPS in a Pug Heroic I did yesterday.
You gotta know how
was
to play your
absolutely
class.
Lightstorm is king.
Was he heroically challenged?
Oh, it was
Or
terrible.
she, rather?
He stood in everything. It
Yeah.
was bad.
So there's nothing that substitutes good playing. But what? All right, guys. So we've talked a little bit about the generalness of the dungeons. What about like the boss mechanics? We've talked like, a little bit about which bosses were good. Which ones stick out to you guys? I know for me, the first time I did it, because I think it was heroic or normal, I didn't really care. But when I did it on Mythic, I had a lot of fun with it. Was Cordana. I actually really liked the element of the light and like having somebody that has to reveal the light and the line of guys. It's just fun to have boss mechanics where they just kind of, they're whimsical with it and they give you stuff that, yeah, it's probably going to wipe you if you screw it up, but it's also different. It's fun. It's better than the like, don't stand in this. No, I'm not standing in this, but I actually have to do something to get rid of the thing that I'm standing in. Like it just seemed a little bit more in depth.
I mean, they're also varied too. I don't think any two bosses are even similar, I mean, they did so well at introducing new mechanics and also reusing like maybe old boss mechanics from like previous expansions that you don't notice any similarities
mixing it
between
up.
the boss. Yeah, I think it's brilliantly done. And there's so many. I think there's 10 dungeons right now, 12 when you unlock the Suramar dungeons, but they're so varied that it keeps it interesting too.
Yeah, and I mean they really do pull from old raids. Like the Hydra boss from Eye of Ashara is literally that boss from what raid is that? I'm blanking. Thorn to Thunder. When you're down there by the pit, it's the same boss. It's
The
similar
entire
models.
Violet Hold is all old bosses.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And they just did a good job of blending it all together, making it all a little bit different between each dungeon, within each dungeon. But what else? What bosses what stand out for you guys?
I like the second to last boss in Halls of Valor. The
Skjorn.
general, yeah, whatever he is.
Skjorn, the
Godkin,
fallen
Skobald?
godkin. Oh, that one, yeah.
Yeah, because he's kind of like a semi-tank and spank, but he also like throws shit on the ground that like uh, obviously in a mythic setting doesn't really do much to your group. But I know for a fact, like once you start getting into the higher mythics or mythic pluses rather, that it becomes a lot more difficult as far as managing the space in the room and especially if you have DPS or melee DPS and so on and so forth. So that for me is sort of like a like I'm not really excited doing it now just because it's kind of face roll, but I know from watching streams and everything that it's gonna get significantly more difficult the higher into Mythic Plus you go. That excites me, not necessarily, the face value of the boss at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Any other bosses that stand out to you guys?
I would say Shade
got-
of Xavius.
Ooh, that's a fun fight. I do
I like
that
the
fight.
debuffs.
Yeah, that's cool. Stack to
Yeah.
undo the silence.
And then spread for the paranoia one.
And it's,
I
it's
think
a cool
interesting.
room.
You
It's
have
a
to
cool
spread
room.
in that fight. Wow,
Oh my
interesting.
god, you don't even know.
I forget the name of the boss, Alice. I think we did it last night where I had to hold, was it the eye or the rune or whatever it was, where it almost had the bracken spore flamethrower mechanic where you had to clear the things off the ground.
That's what I'm
and-
talking.
That's
That's
Cordana.
Cordana. Do you even
Cordana,
listen
yeah.
when I talk?
Cordana.
No, I
Vault of
don't.
the Ward.
I'd turn
Oh
you
my
out.
gosh. All right.
But yeah, I absolutely love that boss. I had
So-
to do that mechanic and it was awesome. So
I will go away from Cordana back one boss to Glazer. I actually enjoy having to like tune all the mirrors for the puzzle to
I hate
actually
that fight.
get off the.
Ridiculous, but I love it. I love
there's
it.
so
I
much
enjoy it.
troll
It's
ability.
fun.
I guess trollability, if that's a word. Like if you're in a pug, like you could troll your group so bad and make your group wipe so much. I mean, think about it.
I just see a
That would
lot of
suck.
it. Like the interplay is really cool that you have to rely on everybody, but it's exactly that. Like you have to rely on everybody. In heroics in WoD and mythics in WoD, you really could carry your team. If you had a bad person, even in challenge modes, you could carry somebody. And because all you had to do was tank and spank for the most part. Don't stand in this, interrupt this. Very simple stuff. They were good dungeons, but I feel like they've really stepped up their game. Alice, Dylan, you guys. Oh, Dylan, you said Cordana because you weren't listening to me. Alice, what about you? You got one that you like?
I said Shade of Xavius.
Oh, Shade of Xavius. That's right. Sorry,
But-
it's a long
Yeah,
night.
he's not listening.
My other boss. My other boss.
Well, you don't
was
get two.
for- Oh come on.
No, I'm just kidding.
The Black Rookhold, the Elisana Ravencrest, where she
The
does
last
her
boss?
little. No, the second boss, the one that does the dash between the three people.
Oh
and
God,
spawns
what
the
a
ads.
son of a
Yeah.
that sucks.
Talk about having to be on your toes to move
Yeah.
out of that fellfire because it ticks like 500k a
Oh my
second.
God. The eye beam. When I'm sitting there, I'm like, guys, what is this green beam on me? Dead. Hunter
Yeah.
I
dead.
think
She
that
has-
whole
she
dungeon
has
was really well
eye-beam.
done.
Yeah.
She has eye beam. She has her 3-person dash. She has the 2 ads that she spawns. I mean, that boss has actually got a lot going on. It's actually pretty fun to play through.
But the funny thing is though, between like, I mean, to go back to scaling, like if you look at heroic versus mythic scaling, heroic is face roll. Like you can literally take the eye beam to the face for seconds before you have to do anything as far as like, throwing up a defensive or moving out, whatever. But mythic, it's like if you take the same approach, you'll get trucked. You won't have that 3-4 seconds to do anything about it before you die. And whether or not that's gonna scale even harder during Mythic Pluses or not, I'm curious to find out. But I mean, definitely from heroic to mythic, it's an insane jump as far as damage increase to everybody in the group.
All right, so let's talk about one more system, one more big thing, and then a final thought. So when I know Alice and I did a lot of talking about it specifically, like Artifact Power was this confusing mess of a thing. You know, people were releasing charts. There was information left and right about, you know, if you missed a day, then you're behind by 7 months, and then you have to times that by 3. Like, there was a lot of randomness out there with Artifact Power. Now that we've all seen Artifact Power in the system, does it work? Is it going to work in the future? Was it the right move?
I don't know. I think the Artifact Power system is good. I don't necessarily like the idea of like not having weapon drops in raids, because I think that was, you always waited. I know Steve would agree. You always wanted to see that weapon drop. I know we had in HFC, Fellord would never drop Steve's weapon.
13 weeks for that Fellord weapon.
But you always want to see that weapon drop. I know the first time we killed Ark, we got an Edict of Argus, and I was so excited as a mage. But you know, I think that the Artifact Power system and having your permanent weapon is good. I think that I would say it's smart for Blizzard to have something like that will keep you playing and keep you farming and keep you, you know, always wanting to do more and always wanting to play their game, because, you know, like I said earlier, like you almost feel guilty when you're not playing, because I could be doing these, you know, world quests that will give me Artifact Power. I could be doing my daily heroic or daily, you know what I mean?
I will say relics don't do it for me. That's their boss drop, like weapon thing. I don't get excited when I see a relic. I see a relic
as, doesn't change anything.
Right. I see a relic as okay, I need this because my eye level is going to go up. I barely even see it because it's going to give me an extra point in ability. I think that's a necessity to look at the abilities, but I see it as a pure eye level upgrade, and that's sad. You know, it really is sad.
That might be just class specific right now, because right now for Warrior there's like 2 talents from those relics that I desperately need, and one is to pretty much act like I'm spending more rage for my tactician procs, and the other one is to reduce rage costs of my abilities after a Colossus Smash. And like
so you're looking
those
at,
2
you're looking
relics
for them.
Yeah, you're looking for those abilities that are like highly needed around the whole arm spec, and it's like something you really want to be looking for whenever you go out and do the gear. I don't know if that's necessarily like how it is for you as a spec, but for as far as artifact points going, you definitely want those talents for those artifact traits.
I just see it as a purely utility thing. I don't see it as an excitement factor. I don't see it as something that I look forward to. Like, I'm going to log in and I'm going to get the best relic ever today. It's going to be the coolest relic ever. It's just, it doesn't do that for me.
You don't get excited about it, but I mean, I agree with Nate. Like, Mage, Fire Mage specifically, has like 2 particular, you know, relics that you need to do like best in slot damage. Like, if you have these 2 relics, you're gonna actually see an increase in your damage, and that's a big deal. But when you don't get that relic, like, or you do get that relic, I don't really care that much, because really it comes down to item level. You want the highest item level. You don't care necessarily about your
and what's even worse is if you look at your relics in the raids and none of the relics for that slot have those talents that you need.
It's the worst.
Because you have to take them anyway because they're a higher item level.
Yeah, for me, like my 2 relics right now, my 2 highest relics are both Cauterizing Blink, which is a defensive. Like, I don't want that stat, but they're so much higher than my other ones that I have to take them because it's going to increase my item level, which is more beneficial than like the relic would be if it was 15 item levels lower.
The only way they can make them sexy, and I say sexy because I feel like weapon drops were sexy in Warlords of Draenor every time. You know,
yeah, if you had them, sure.
Right. Look, hey man, you eventually got it. But like, they need to give it, and this is just an idea. It could be a terrible idea, and it's coming from me, so let's be honest. So, but if they gave a little, you know, instead of putting an extra point in an ability, say they just a relic was unique and it amplified your class or gave you an edge in some way, changed your gameplay the way that legendaries are supposed to quote unquote change your gameplay, then I might be excited about it. Granted, there's a whole slew of balance issues that come with it, but like, I just am not excited for relics. There's nothing exciting about relics. The artifact weapon, the artifact power system is so like type A. I gotta level this thing up. I gotta get all the traits. I've got to put as much AP in it as I possibly can, and I gotta get the eye level up. It's very clinical. It's not like, look at this sexy, awesome weapon I've got. I'm like one of 10 people that have it.
And then you have to have 2 specs and not be able to get the gold trait in one that you need.
Yeah, the dual spec thing is brutal.
It's driving me crazy.
I mean, doesn't that for you and me, Alice and Dylan? I don't know if you're dual specking right now or dual artifact.
Not yet. No, when I'm almost close to my gold trait, my second gold trait, so I'm not yet, but I will be.
But are you, Nate?
Yeah, okay. I got points into Fury and parts into Arms.
It sucks.
I mean, I started out with Fury.
How can they?
Was like realizing that Arms was that big of a difference in specs wise, and I was like, well.
How do they expect to keep it balanced? How do they expect to keep it balanced?
I don't know.
How am I supposed to keep up with somebody? Say, I played BM all through the leveling process. That's what the Hunter Discord channel was talking about. Play BM, and then, the first 13 points are free. Well, yeah, the first 13 points are free, but that's still AP I could have been putting in marks.
Right.
Yeah, but they did come out and say that they are going to make that whole catch-up system with your artifact knowledge when you're doing the research. I mean, you're really going to be able to really take off. I mean, I've already gotten a piece of gear from doing my class all quests for my class campaign today. It gave 1,500 artifact power and was like, whoa.
Right, which is a lot. I mean, it's definitely that first 13 points was really negligible, but it's still points that we were putting in something else, which means that we are further behind than somebody like Kelsø, who's got straight points in enhancement. That's all he's got.
Yes.
I will say,
yes, and you know what? I'm not mad about it at all, because guess what? We're doing Mythic dungeons with our guild, and somebody else is healing, so I don't need to worry about throwing into my resto tree. However, I will say that I do feel guilty by not, maximizing the amount of artifact power that I'm getting for my enhancement set, because I'm only, I think, 17 traits in, and I know that a lot of people are at 19, 20 traits in.
Who the hell's at 19 and 20 traits?
Listen, people that have had a lot more time off.
There are certain people.
So,
Yeah.
Are we talking about Kia?
No, we're not talking about Kia.
But we do know someone who is working on their 21st trait.
Who are we talking about?
Well, we're talking about people in
we don't talk about other guilds. We're talking
about sadly, we know people in other guilds,
right,
so I
enough.
don't know what that means, but
not allowed.
There are people that I'm friends with that are working on their 20th, 21st traits, and it's just because they may have had that first week off and have been grinding the artifact power world quests this entire time. And to be frank, if I get my emissary quests done, that's pretty much the majority of the world quests that I want to do for the day. I don't want to grind 10 other world quests for artifact power. That's not fun for me. I'd rather go play an alt and try and work on that. So for me, I'm working on my 18th trait, and I think I'm 3,000 artifact power off of my 18th trait, and that's fine for me, because enhancement's in one of those interesting positions where we get a lot of our solid traits and points earlier on, and everything later on is sort of meh, who cares? But it's still it's one of those positions where we're all sort of in the same boat, where I agree, we don't get weapons, we get those relics, and relics are cool, but
and then your off-spec weapon's higher item level than your main spec weapon, just because you get those relics and Titan Forge or whatever.
Precisely, it's not linear. If you wanna play one play one spec, it's brilliant. You play that spec, you should naturally have a higher item level in that particular spec. But I have 871 enhancement weapons, but I also have 866 resto weapons, and I have 0 points in my resto tree right now, but because my relic situation between the two has been somewhat of a plus, I have a comparable resto weapon to go hand in hand with my my enhancement weapon. So, yes, Blizzard, you're doing a great job as far as trying to keep things going along and trying to keep the grind on. But I would much prefer less of a grind up front and maybe reap somewhat of the benefits along the way and as we go, versus just sort of being in a lull as we are right now, sort of waiting for the next raid to come out.
Yeah, I mean, that's it, guys. I mean, I feel like we covered so much about the Legion launch. I mean, we're coming up on an hour and a half, believe it or not.
Oh
Yeah.
my
No,
god.
I believe
We've
it.
covered nothing. We've covered nothing.
No, I disagree. We've covered
I'm
so
wasted
much.
right now.
No,
I'm
you're
A
not.
lot of losing.
You're
God,
fine.
I have to pee so bad. It's not even funny.
All right. Well, you know what? Let's wrap it up. Let's tie this thing up with a bow. God, at least there's one responsible adult here. I just saw Alice get shushed in the middle of that. That was really funny. But let's tie this up in a bow.
Don't wake the baby.
Don't wake the baby. Let's tie this up in a bow. Thumbs up, thumbs down on the screen right now. How was Legion launch for you guys? All right, so we got 2 thumbs up, 1 thumb up, 1 thumb up, 2 thumbs up, and Dylan's being a jerk.
45 degrees.
That's not even an option. Oh, Kelsø, stop it.
I will say,
No. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
I've really enjoyed it. I think that certain things they did were sort of annoying and make me feel guilty for doing other things with my life. Like I want to go out and have fun.
Stop being a student.
But
God damn it.
But I'm excited for the raids. I'm excited for Mythic Plus dungeons. I'm really excited to get, the core of Legion underway. That's what I'm really most excited about.
Yeah. Well, guys,
Yo, Gul'dan.
if you're still here, my hat is off to you because God knows
Why?
I wouldn't listen to us talk for
Why
an hour and a half.
are you still here?
But we are so excited
Why
that you
you
guys have tuned in, checked out our first edition of Let's Drink and Talk About Legion, the launch edition. This has been Kodiak, Kelsø, Alýce, Pronate, and Wazard, and we will see you guys next time for another Let's Drink and Talk About Legion. See you later.
See ya.